Welcome back. So right now I'm actually getting the customer dynamically from my list of customers inside the service. But the problem right now is even though I put 3 in here or 2, I'll still get customer 1 always. So I want to be even more dynamic. I want to get the right customer when I'm putting in a specific route. So let's try and jump back to our code and just have a look at how we can fix that. Now what we need to do is we need to go and we need to figure out how we inside our details component can actually go and get information from the URL inside our code. So we need some way to go and get the information and the actual ID from the URL inside this details component. How do we do that? Well, let's just try and go back into Angular.io right here and see if we can find some information inside routing. And let's just scroll down here in the final code again, and let's just try and see inside the class called hero detail component TS in the hero detail component. And there I'm going to go down and have a look right here. It seems they're using something called activated route to get a specific parameter ID, right? So let's just grab this activated route right here, which is just a dependency injected class that I'm going to need. And let's jump, because what we need is from the activated route, which is the current URL you see right here. I need to get a specific piece of information, which is the actual ID inside that route. And that's actually what we can do from this activated route class. Let's jump back to our code and actually add the activated route just like that. And I'll just import this. There we go, we have the activated route. And then what do we need to do next? If I scroll further down, you can see in the get hero right here in their example, they're actually using this.route snapshot, the paramap, and then get ID. That's pretty much meaning that we're going to try and find the ID inside our route. So I'm going to grab that. Now the small plus in the beginning, that's actually, the plus right there is actually just to convert a string into a number. Yes, that's crazy, but that's how it works inside TypeScript. So I'm going to add that right here. And again, the plus right here is just to take this map that we're getting the ID, and actually that's a string, and the plus will convert it into an int value, right? We're getting the ID from our route. And if I have to show you that, let's jump into the route here, because that ID actually maps to the name right here inside the path, the actual ID in this path. So if I wrote snurf there, I also had to write snurf inside my details component right here. The name has to be the same, right? But I said ID, so I also have to put ID up here. Now we have the actual ID available. Now we have to do is switch the 1 right here with an actual ID instead. There we go. So now we should have the real ID that we put inside our route. Let's try and see if it works. So if I go back to my application and I put in the number of 2 right now, you'll show number 2. Because it actually went into my route and grabbed the final ID and put it into my service to get a specific customer with that ID. Let's try and put in 1 again. There we go. What happens if I put in another number, let's say 3, boom, I got an exception actually. Now the exception is actually that we're getting a null reference exception of some kind. So we need to figure out how we can make sure in our code that if we don't get a customer, if there's no customer available, instead of exploding, we need to kind of guard ourselves. If we're not getting a customer, we should not explode. So let's try and jump back to our code right here. And what we'll do is we'll just start out by adding a div right here. And that div is going to, using an ngIf, it's going to decide, oh, let's just put the h1 outside. There we go. This div right here is going to use something called ngIf. And ngIf is a way for me to kind of do an if statement inside and decide, do you want to show this code or not? And we want to show this code if, notice how simple it is, there's actually a customer. So this simple check right here is actually going to say if the customer is undefined or null, don't show this div. If he's not, then actually show the div. We can go even further. Let's just do another div right here. And that div is actually just going to write, let's just add an ngIf here. It's going to say ngIf there is not a customer like this. So if there isn't a customer available, then I just want to show customers not found or something like that. Let's just put it in H2, customer not found. There we go. So now it will pretty much mean this code that if there is a customer, when I'm selecting specific details, it'll actually show the customer with the top ngIf. But if there's not a customer, it'll actually show the lower one, the lower div. So that's all I had to do. Now let's try again. It says now customer not found when I put in the ID of 3. Let's try and go and put in ID 2 again. There's the customer. Let's try and put in the ID 3, not found. So that's how simple it actually is to get information from a route inside Angular.